There are places on Earth where time seems to pause, where the wind that moves across the stone might be the same wind that brushed the cloaks of ancient kings. The Great Pyramid of Khufu rises from the Giza Plateau as a shape so clean that the eye almost refuses to believe it was made by hands and not by nature. It is a mountain that does not belong to nature. Every block is set with a precision that feels impossible for its age. Every surface seems to stare back with quiet confidence. More than 4,500 years have passed since the workers of the ancient world placed the last stone at its summit. Yet no monument built afterward has matched the scale of its riddle. Most monuments tell us proudly what they are. A temple is a place of worship. A tomb is a place of rest. A palace is a place of power. But the Great Pyramid, the largest and oldest of the three giants at Giza, refuses to reveal itself fully. Archaeologists know with certainty that Khufu, the second king of the 4th dynasty of ancient Egypt, ordered its construction. They know the approximate date when it began to rise. They know the names of some workers who cut the limestone and dragged granite from quarries many kilometers to the south. They have found official seals, marks on blocks, and ancient papyrus that describes boats carrying stone down the Nile. Yet all this knowledge barely scratches the outer skin of the structure. The pyramid's interior offers too few clues. A descending passage drops into the bedrock, leading to a room called the subterranean chamber. A horizontal corridor rises to the queen chamber. A steep hallway opens into the grand gallery that climbs up toward the king chamber. These are the parts that explorers have known for centuries. They form only a tiny fraction of what could exist inside. Because the pyramid is not hollow, it is a mass of more than 2 million limestone blocks. It is filled with stone that hides secrets within its weight. The mystery is intensified by the precision of the design. Every side of the pyramid's base measures close to 230 meters. The orientation is nearly perfect to the cardinal directions, with the sides aligned to true north, south, east, and west. Discrepancies exist, but they are small enough to impress even modern engineers. The original height was close to 146 meters. Today it stands slightly shorter, its shining white casing removed long ago. But even stripped of that skin, it remains the tallest stone structure ever built without steel or reinforced concrete. How could the ancient builders achieve such accuracy? Some argue they used tools of copper and stone, simple ropes and wooden sledges. Others suggest they might have had knowledge now forgotten. What is known is that they left no blueprints. They carved no description of the interior layout. No ancient architect recorded what voids or rooms lie deep inside. Unlike later pyramids or tombs, there are no walls covered in funerary texts to guide the soul of a king. The Great Pyramid appears to have been designed to conceal itself from those not meant to enter. This concealment is not accidental. The builders understood the nature of solid stone. They created stress chambers above the king chamber to bear the enormous weight of the pyramid above it. They carved shafts so narrow that a person cannot crawl through them, pointing toward ancient stars that were believed to guide the pharaoh's soul to the heavens. They arranged corridors that seemed to bend and change angle for reasons that historians still debate. The structure behaves like a lock whose key has been lost. In earlier centuries, explorers believed that buried treasure must lie within. They imagined rooms stacked with gold, jewelry, and the wealth of a god-king. Invaders and treasure hunters broke into the walls, cutting rough tunnels through the stone to reach the inner chambers. They found an empty granite box in the king chamber. That was all. If there had ever been riches placed inside, they were removed long before. Or perhaps there was never wealth intended for human hands. The emptiness of known rooms led some to believe the pyramid's purpose had been misunderstood. Perhaps it was a monument to the sky itself. Perhaps the pharaoh's burial was symbolic rather than literal. Perhaps the physical body of Khufu was taken elsewhere. All these ideas have been considered, but none can be proven, because what we know of the pyramid's architecture is incomplete, very incomplete. Modern science has measured what explorers never could. Lasers have scanned the exterior to map tiny variations in slope and alignment. Ground-penetrating radar has been pressed against limestone blocks to listen for echoes inside. Micro-robots have crawled up ventilation shafts and sent back camera images of sealed doors. These efforts have revealed fragments of the truth, yet each discovery hints at spaces still untouched. This is what makes the Great Pyramid the greatest archaeological puzzle on Earth. There are places inside that have not been entered since the time of Khufu. There are voids that might be rooms, there are corridors that stop too suddenly. There are stones that feel hollow behind their surface. There are alignments that seem intentional, but have no clear purpose in the spaces that humans have reached. The puzzle is not just what has been found. The puzzle is what we cannot see. The weight of stone keeps its silence, and every year that passes without answers increases the sense of awe. The pyramid outlasted the kingdom that built it. It outlasted wars and empires, and the slow erosion of the desert. Human civilization has remade the entire world since its stones were set in place. Yet inside its core, time has remained sealed. Anyone who stands before the north face of the Great Pyramid can feel this silence. The entrance carved into that face sits above ground level, hidden originally by smooth casing stones that once reflected sunlight so brightly that the eye struggled to look directly at the pyramid. Visitors now step up scaffolding and walk through a passage opened long ago. But that entrance is not the original way inside. That original doorway has never been found. The ancient builders concealed it so completely that even modern instruments cannot locate its remains. Every known passage feels like the edge of a map, as if explorers have stepped only 1 meter into a labyrinth that extends far deeper into the stone. Archaeologists know this. Physicists know this. The idea that so much remains hidden inside a structure that so many believe they understand pushes both fields forward. To solve the puzzle, patience is required. Force would only damage the monument and erase evidence that is irreplaceable. The Great Pyramid does not offer answers on the surface. It pulls us inward, where light cannot reach, where time has been locked away, where walls wait untouched since the age when pharaohs were believed to become stars. The mystery continues, and the deeper the search goes, the clearer it becomes that the greatest secrets of the pyramid are not carved into the chambers we know. They lie somewhere within the stone, quiet, unseen, waiting. We have only begun to listen. The Great Pyramid is more than stone. It is a message, not one carved in hieroglyphs, but written through architecture itself. When ancient Egyptians built tombs of later periods, they filled walls with spells and scenes showing the king in the presence of gods. They wrote down the instructions that a soul needed to survive in the next world. Khufu's pyramid does not speak that language. It seems to communicate in silence, as if the very shape and structure contain the secret to eternity. Many mysteries of the pyramid revolve around its inner layout. The subterranean chamber lies carved deep into the bedrock beneath the pyramid. Its rough walls and unfinished look puzzle researchers. If this was the intended burial chamber, why was it abandoned? The floor drops into an even deeper pit whose purpose is not understood. Above it, the queen chamber sits at the heart of the structure. Early explorers named it that, though no queen was ever meant to rest there. It is small and serene, with a pointed ceiling formed of carefully placed blocks. 2 narrow shafts extend from this room upward and outward, too small for any person to enter. They once appeared to have no ending, until a robot discovered small limestone doors blocking them near the outer layers of the pyramid. Even higher lies the king chamber. This room is lined in massive granite blocks brought from Aswan far to the south. How these stones were lifted to such a height remains a subject of engineering debate. Above the king chamber are 5 layered spaces, sometimes called relieving chambers. Their purpose is to distribute the unimaginable weight of stone overhead. Each chamber contains enormous granite, beams, many with red quarry marks from the workers who shaped them. They are functional spaces but also reveal the scale of thought behind the structure. The builders never intended anyone to climb into these layers, yet they took the time to construct them with accuracy and care. These known spaces form only a thin path inside a mountain of limestone. If one were to draw an outline of all the corridors and chambers discovered so far, it would look like a tiny thread lost inside a solid block. That thread suggests there could be more, much more. because unlike most later tombs, the Great Pyramid holds its secrets deep at its core, rather than in easily accessed galleries. This choice makes little sense if the sole purpose were to hide treasure. Thieves through history would have eventually uncovered every room if the goal were merely to store gold. Instead, the architecture shows intention, directed towards something we still struggle to interpret. The shafts in both the Queen and King chambers point towards stars that held meaning in ancient Egyptian belief. One aligns with the star commonly known as Sirius. Another aims toward the region occupied by the constellation Orion. These were viewed as homes of gods and as pathways that a pharaoh's spirit might travel to join the realm of the eternal. The pyramid seems to be both a machine of stone and a symbolic map of the sky. The alignment of the entire structure to true north is another sign of advanced planning. Ancient builders likely used observations of stars that rotate around the celestial pole to mark accurate directions. The result is a base so square that even modern surveyors express admiration. The sides of the pyramid slope at a precise angle, creating a shape known as a perfect pyramid, rather than a stepped form seen in some earlier constructions. The approach to design was geometric and purposeful. Nothing appears rushed or improvised, even though the project likely took only a few decades to complete. Questions multiply because the few answers we have feel incomplete. Why does the Grand Gallery have such height if it is only a passage? Was it part of a mechanism to move stones upward? Was its shape symbolic, like a stairway to the heavens? Why is the Queen Chamber placed off the main axis of the pyramid? Why does the descending passage continue deep into the ground instead of leading directly to the heart of the monument? Every turn seems to challenge logic if one expects simplicity. The workers behind this structure were not thousands of enslaved people suffering under the command of a tyrant, as once believed by many. Archaeological evidence shows they were skilled laborers and craftsmen who lived in nearby workers' villages with supplies of bread, meat, and beer. They were proud participants in a national project meant to honor their king and ensure the harmony of the kingdom. The pyramid is a legacy of engineering built with human intelligence, teamwork, and devotion. That makes its hidden spaces feel even more deliberate. Nothing about it seems wasted. As the centuries passed, the casing stones that once created a smooth outer shell were removed or fell due to earthquakes. Those polished blocks reflected sunlight so brilliantly that ancient writers compared the pyramid to a sacred mountain of light. With the casing removed, the edges of the pyramid became more visible, and the entrance that modern tourists use was carved artificially by force rather than discovered naturally. The real entrance is still concealed in the geometry of the north face. Its absence raises a thought that seems almost unsettling. What if the pyramid was designed not to be opened? What if the interior was never meant to be reached by anyone after the final stone was laid? Archaeologists today balance curiosity with caution. They know that damaging any part of the structure could destroy valuable information locked away for more than 4,000 years. Traditional excavation methods cannot solve this puzzle. Drilling into the pyramid at random could hit an empty space or a structural block essential to the monument's stability. The pyramid is a giant, three-dimensional puzzle, and every hidden space might be a key to understanding the blueprint that has been lost. The closer experts look, the more they realize that imagination must be tempered by accuracy. Every theory must stand alongside evidence. Ideas have evolved from wild speculation about lost civilizations to careful study supported by physics and engineering. Yet even with advanced tools, the pyramid keeps its calm silence. If there are chambers we have not reached, they remain beyond reach of human hands, protected by millions of tons of stone. This is why the pyramid continues to draw researchers and dreamers to Giza. It is not only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, it is a wonder that refuses to reveal itself fully. And that refusal becomes an invitation, a challenge, a call to discovery. The puzzle waits beneath a sky that has watched empires rise and vanish. The Great Pyramid still stands, shaped by ancient knowledge and guarding secrets that modern science has only begun to uncover. The desert wind sweeps fine sand across the stones, but it cannot enter the hidden depths. That is the power of the Great Pyramid. Everything important happens where no wind has touched in more than 4,000 years. The notion that there are spaces still sealed from the world is difficult for some to believe. People look at the massive structure and assume it has been fully explored. After all, countless visitors walk through it each year. They bend low in the narrow passages. They climb toward the granite chamber once thought to hold Khufu. They feel the weight of the structure pressing from every direction. They think they have seen the inside of the pyramid, but what they have seen is only the portion that history has allowed them to reach. There are places within the pyramid where no light has entered since the moment the builders placed the final limestone block. There are corridors that end abruptly, as if waiting for a continuation that never arrived. There are cavities above the known chambers where stones lie with gaps between them, and no one can say whether those gaps hide vast rooms or simple structural tricks. It is a puzzle hidden inside a monument that itself dominates the horizon. The surface is enormous, but the silence within is even larger. To understand the scale of the mystery, imagine looking at a mountain and knowing that deep inside it lies an ancient cathedral untouched by time. Imagine the cathedral is real, but you have no map to it, only tiny hints that something hollow hides within the stone. That is the challenge that modern researchers face. They know there is more. They can measure shapes and densities. They can detect anomalies within the stone where solid limestone should exist. They can even estimate the size of these spaces. But they cannot reach them. They cannot touch them. They can only study the shadow of what is there. The limits of traditional archaeology have forced a change in approach. The pyramid is too important to risk reckless intrusion. Instead of chisels and explosives like those used in centuries past, modern archaeologists come equipped with tools that can see without touching. These include lasers that measure every millimeter of the surface, radar that sends waves into the stone looking for reflections, thermal cameras that detect the changing temperatures on the outer blocks as night cools and day heats the structure. Each method reveals a small layer of truth, just enough to suggest that the pyramid is not what it seems. The first real breakthrough came with the use of advanced scanning in recent decades. These scans discovered variations in heat along the north face, especially near the original entrance. Differences in temperature suggest that behind certain blocks there might be empty spaces rather than solid stone. But the results are not sharp. Stone can distort signals. Heat can behave unpredictably. It is like feeling a pulse through thick gloves. You know something is there, but the details slip away. Another effort focused on the shafts within the pyramid. The small corridors branching from the queen and king chambers were originally thought to be simple ventilation. But the ancient Egyptians had no need to vent air for the living inside a tomb. These shafts point with purpose. Cameras and tiny robots have been sent into them, crawling slowly through limestone veins that run through the structure. These machines reached sealed doors that have not been opened since the age of pyramids began. Behind those doors could be more channels or rooms or even mosaics of secrets that the builders hoped would remain unseen. Imagine a robot no larger than a child's hand, crawling through a shaft narrower than a small narrow pipe, squeezing through the heart of a monument, older than most civilizations. That robot stops in front of a small door made of white limestone. On that door are copper fixtures, decorative or functional. The robot shines a light on the stone. The image shows a surface smooth and untouched. That moment becomes a reminder that the Great Pyramid is alive with things human eyes have never witnessed. This is the difference between what explorers of previous centuries believed and what scientists know today. They once thought the pyramid had given up its secrets. Modern research shows that was only the beginning. The pyramid seems almost layered in its mystery, willing to reveal one secret only if it leads to a deeper one. Every discovery opens a new question. Every newly detected void feels like a whisper from the past, saying, "Look here, but be patient." Even when robots peer through small drilled holes, the question remains whether what is found is just one piece of a greater plan. The ancient Egyptians built with intention. They believed in eternity, not as a poetic idea, but as a concrete goal. Their pharaoh was meant to ascend to the heavens and rule among the stars forever. To ensure this, they crafted a structure that reflected both the earth and the sky. The pyramid is aligned to the cardinal directions. It encodes proportions linked to cycles of the cosmos. Light from the sun once gleamed off the casing stones like a beacon visible for kilometers around. Everything about the structure speaks to permanence and celestial ambition, and so the mystery deepens. If the hidden spaces inside are connected to this purpose, then they are not random. They were placed to endure. The builders sealed them not because they feared intrusion, but because they wanted the message they contained to survive until a far future when humans learned how to see the unseen. They were building for those not yet born. They were writing a message across millennia using blocks of stone instead of ink or paint. The idea is humbling. Our modern world, fast and restless, rarely builds for centuries, let alone thousands of years. Yet ancient workers lifted blocks heavier than a small vehicle and arranged them with patience so that their structure would still stand after civilizations turned to dust. The pyramid's survival is not accidental. It is a deliberate defiance of time. When you stand at the base and look up, the summit seems to touch the edge of the sky. It is a testament to what human hands can accomplish when guided by a vision beyond the lifespan of any single person. Those who built the pyramid lived and died, knowing they would never see what their work was meant to protect. They gave their lives to a secret they could not witness. That is the heart of the puzzle. There is something inside the pyramid that was never meant for those who built it. It was left for someone else, someone in the future, someone who could understand. And now, in our age of particles and lasers and quiet machines, we may be the first generation capable of unlocking that message without destroying its vessel. The secret is not lost, it is only waiting. The Great Pyramid did not appear by accident. It was designed, planned, executed, with a level of organization that echoes across the ages. Yet the blueprint that guided its creation is gone. No scroll has ever been found that explains the corridors or chambers inside. No stone tablet records the angles of the shafts or the placement of the passages. The ancient architects left nothing behind that tells us how they intended the inner world of this monument to function. They built a structure meant to last forever, but they allowed its instructions to vanish. What we do know comes from footprints left in the desert of time. In a group of workers' villages discovered near the plateau, archaeologists found pottery, stone tools, and fragments of daily life. They found bones of cattle and goats that fed the laborers. They found bakeries that once produced bread to fuel the strength of thousands. They found graves of workers who likely died during construction, buried with respect and offerings. The image that emerges is not one of despair, but of devotion. This project was the mission of a kingdom. It pulled together craftsmen, engineers, and planners who brought knowledge from across the Nile Valley. They had learned from earlier pyramids. Before Khufu, kings were buried in step pyramids. The most famous, the one at Saqqara built for the king Djoser, began as a simple square mastaba before expanding upward into a stack of terraces. That structure gave its creator Imhotep the honor of being remembered as a genius. But it also revealed flaws. Step pyramids lacked the smooth geometry that Khufu desired. Later, his father Sneferu attempted multiple pyramids, including one with a bend in its slope that suggests unexpected forces altered the plan. These earlier builders were experimenting, learning how to defeat gravity with stone. By the time Khufu ascended the throne, Egypt had mastered the art of moving massive blocks across great distances. Workers quarried limestone from Giza itself, but special granite for the king chamber came from Aswan far to the south. Boats carried the stones down the Nile when the flood made transport easier. Ramps of earth and brick likely rose beside the growing pyramid, allowing teams to drag blocks upward using sledges and lubricated tracks. Every motion was calculated. Every worker knew their role. It was a society building a dream of eternity. And yet, the inner maze was kept secret. The architects did not carve symbols on the walls of the Queen Chamber or the Grand Gallery. They left the stones bare, as if speaking would reveal too much. The most important passages were likely known only to a few trusted engineers. Their knowledge died with them. The silence of the chambers is the silence of men who took their craft to the grave. It is difficult to imagine how carefully this secrecy was maintained. Consider the original entrance on the north face, now lost behind restored blocks and centuries of change. It was disguised so perfectly that no invader or explorer ever found it by sight alone. The entrance used today was created by force during a time when blasting and breaking into ancient structures was common. The true doorway still remains hidden, somewhere beneath the lines of massive stones set with flawless precision. The architects understood human curiosity, and they planned for it. They did not want the inner world exposed. What reason could guide such a choice? Part of it may have been protection. The pharaoh was more than a king. He was the link between the people and the divine. His remains were believed to hold great power even after death. Guarding the burial was essential to protect the balance of the cosmos. But there is something deeper about the silence of the pyramid. The absence of written guidance suggests that the design itself carried a message that words could not express. The inner passages curve and ascend in ways that may reflect spiritual journeys described later in Egyptian belief. The shafts that point towards stars might represent pathways for the soul of the king. The entire structure could be a three-dimensional text written in architecture. If this is true, then the lack of written instructions was not an oversight. It was part of the design. The pyramid did not need words. It was itself the sacred document. Modern architects study its proportions and discover patterns based on simple geometry. The ratio between the height and the perimeter has been compared to relationships found in the natural world. Some see hints of circles hidden in straight lines. Others point to symbolism connecting the structure to the horizon, the Nile, or the rising and setting of the lowercase sun. The builders were not guessing. They were experts who shaped stone with purpose. Still, for every theory that finds support, another rises to challenge it. The absence of blueprints leaves too much space for interpretation. Archaeologists must balance imagination with caution. Engineers must remember that what seems impossible to us today might have been ordinary to those who worked with the pyramid daily. Physics changes nothing about the weight of a block, but knowledge of stone can evolve and be lost across centuries. There is one detail that continues to unsettle researchers. The most secure and central space accessible today is the king chamber, yet it does not show clear evidence of ever having held the body of Khufu. The granite box sits inside with no lid. It is too large to fit through the passage, meaning it must have been placed there before the room was completed. Tool marks show effort and care. But if this room was not the actual burial site, then where is the true tomb? Arguments arise. Some propose that Khufu was never buried there. Others believe his resting place still lies above or below in chambers no one has reached. The pyramid stands like a puzzle with missing pieces, but the missing pieces are hidden by design. We know the ancient builders could calculate levels and angles with remarkable precision. They understood forces that would crush chambers if walls were not reinforced. They built structures to last ages, and yet they left no explanation, possibly believing explanation was unnecessary. They trusted time to reveal their intentions to those who advanced far enough to see. Even today, when scientists use lasers and computers to measure every block, we cannot read the blueprint that once guided the construction. We can only sense its presence in the harmony of stone. We are slowly learning the language of the builders, but we are still unable to speak it fluently. Something of their knowledge remains sealed inside the monument with the very secrets it protects. The ancient architects who shaped the Great Pyramid understood forces that we only rediscovered through centuries of scientific progress. They knew how to place each block so that the pressure from above would compress the structure rather than crack it. They carved the inner passages so that stress from millions of tons of stone would be redirected and distributed around the hollow spaces. This knowledge did not come from written mathematics. It came from generations of experience. Techniques were passed from master to apprentice, not inked onto papyrus. The craft lived in human memory, and when those memories faded, the methods faded with them. The pyramid we see is the final form of a design that likely changed as it grew. Some researchers believe that the subterranean chamber was the original intended resting place of the king. It lies deep beneath the structure, carved into the bedrock itself. But the chamber appears unfinished. Its rough walls and the mysterious shaft cut into its floor hint that the plan was abandoned. Why? Did the builders decide that the king deserved a higher ascent toward the heavens? Did they learn something new about stability or symbolic alignment and change course while already deep in construction? If the design evolved, it evolved without records. The builders did not leave notes explaining why the Queen Chamber was placed where it is. They did not carve dates or names into the Grand Gallery. The only writings inside the pyramid are found high above the King Chamber in the relieving spaces, left by a team of workers who signed their crew name in simple red paint. Those signatures are the closest thing we have to the identity of the minds behind the monument. They are not royal proclamations. They are not sacred inscriptions. They are markings like those made by workers today on finished structures, a sign of pride, a signature saying we were here. The pyramid is a monument to a king, but it is also a monument to the invisible genius of its creators. By leaving no blueprint, they ensured that future civilizations would marvel at their accomplishment and wonder how they achieved what they did. They turned architecture into a question that spans millennia. The absence of written plans forces us to search deeper, to listen more carefully, to question assumptions. Even the scale of the workforce remains debated. Many scholars estimate that tens of thousands of workers labored over decades to complete the structure. Others suggest fewer workers could achieve the task through clever organization and seasonal cycles of available labor. What is clear is that the entire nation contributed in some form. Farmers brought food during the Nile flood season when their fields were underwater. Craftsmen carved stone tools to shape the blocks. Artists and overseers measured each angle to ensure perfection. It was a monumental collaboration that transcended individual lives. The structure itself suggests a mixture of order and innovation. Each side of the pyramid is slightly concave, a subtle curve inward that becomes visible only under sharp light. This feature may have improved stability or preserved alignment. The corners are positioned with astonishing accuracy toward the directions of the compass. The base is nearly level despite the uneven natural ground below. These details show the depth of planning involved. They knew exactly what they were doing, even if we do not. When explorers first crawled through the low and narrow passages, they felt an eerie emptiness. The walls did not speak. There were no carved gods, no painted scenes, no magical texts. This silence creates more questions than answers. If the pharaoh intended his tomb to guide his soul, why would he choose a place without the protective spells that later pharaohs relied on? Was the pyramid itself the ultimate spell, a structure of such precision and symbolic might that no words were needed? Some researchers have considered the idea that the king chamber was not the final destination for the pharaoh at all. They look at the granite sarcophagus and wonder why it lacks decoration. They examine the tight passageways and wonder how a funeral procession could have been possible. The theory grows that the true burial chamber might still be sealed behind blocks placed so seamlessly that no one has noticed the doorway. The thought sends a chill through the imagination. What if the king still lies somewhere inside, untouched and undisturbed in the heart of his pyramid? What if the secret room has waited thousands of years for science to evolve enough to find it? This search drives new generations to explore the old stones with new ideas. Engineers model stress points inside the pyramid to guess where rooms might logically exist. Archaeologists examine the alignment of ancient myths to find clues about symbolic placements. Physicists bring instruments that can detect density changes deep within the structure without cutting into the stone. All these methods reflect a truth that the original builders likely understood. The pyramid is more than a tomb. It is a machine built to challenge time. The lack of blueprints does not mean the builders lacked planning. It means they planned on a level that did not require drawings. They built with knowledge so refined that the act of building was the plan. They worked by sight and feel, and instinct honed through generations. Their understanding of stone and gravity was practical. They did not write geometry, they shaped it. And yet, we are not entirely blind to their intentions. The pyramid continues to communicate through its structure. It speaks through alignment. It speaks through silence. It speaks through mysteries placed out of reach. To unlock its messages, we must continue to seek knowledge, not only in what is visible, but in what hides beneath the weight of limestone. The builders did not want us to read about their creation. They wanted us to experience the awe they felt as they raised a mountain of humanity toward the sky. They wanted us to stand before their achievement and feel the same breathless question that has endured since the day the last stone was placed. How did they do this? And more importantly, why did they choose this design? The absence of written plans leaves us to interpret the intentions of the builders through the stones themselves. Every block becomes a clue. Every angle suggests a choice. When scientists map the pyramid interior using modern tools, they find that the structure is not uniform. The density of limestone shifts in patterns, almost like invisible architecture hidden within the mass. These discoveries hint that the builders may have designed new passages or chambers and then sealed them completely once their purpose was fulfilled. Some believe this sealing was part of a ritual. When the king entered the pyramid in death, the path behind him may have been closed forever, trapping his spirit inside a protected world where it could begin its journey to the stars. This idea fits the ancient view that a pharaoh's destiny was eternal. He became a divine being who must not be disturbed. The pyramid would serve as both a sanctuary and a fortress, guarding its precious contents against chaos and against curious intruders who lacked understanding. But there is a contradiction at the center of this belief. If the king's soul was meant to reach the heavens, why seal the structure so tightly? Why create shafts that point towards stars and then close them with doors that no one alive could open? The puzzle becomes even more strange when one considers the Grand Gallery. It is a space of extraordinary design, tall and steep, lined with ridged walls that rise like steps toward an invisible destination. Some suggest it served as a path for the king's spirit, an ascent carved in stone. Others think it was part of a mechanical system used during construction, a place where a great counterweight could move blocks upward. Both ideas hold weight, yet neither fully explains the beauty or the mystery of its construction. The pyramids. Design contains a mixture of practicality and symbolism that is difficult to untangle. Even the simple choice of location reveals intent. The Giza Plateau is a natural high ground near the Nile. It gives the pyramid a view across the valley and toward the rising and setting of the lowercase sun. Beneath the sand, the bedrock is strong enough to support unimaginable weight. The site was not chosen by chance. It was selected because it connected Earth to the cosmos through geography and through belief. Inside the pyramid, narrow passageways force visitors to crouch or crawl. This is no accident. Movement becomes a reminder of humility in a place designed to honor a god-king. The Grand Gallery, by contrast, opens the space and lifts the spirit. These shifts create a journey. A person traveling through the pyramid experiences a transformation in perspective. It is architecture used as a spiritual narrative. The precision of the stonework remains one of the most impressive achievements of ancient engineering. Each block is shaped so carefully that there is barely enough space to slide a blade of grass between them. This tight bonding means the pyramid has survived earthquakes and weathering that destroyed lesser structures. The builders did not hope their creation would last. They expected it to endure for ages. Their success is visible every time the sun rises over Giza and casts its first light upon the ancient blocks. And yet, the deeper we look, the stranger the design becomes. The Queen Chamber lies at the very center of the structure, aligned along a vertical axis that holds spiritual meaning. Some believe this chamber once held a statue of the pharaoh, serving as a vessel for his soul. Others see it as a symbolic womb, representing rebirth. No evidence inside the chamber answers these questions. The room stands silent, empty, and perfect. Its meaning remains locked away. Above it and beyond it are layers of limestone that may hide more chambers. These would be rooms created not for the living, but for forces unseen, symbolic or practical. We know of a vast void discovered through modern scanning methods that lies above the Grand Gallery, a space long and tall enough to hold a passenger plane. The existence of this void proves that the builders were shaping interior space with complexity far beyond the visible corridors. If they designed such a space without marking its purpose, what else could be concealed? What if the true burial site of Khufu rests above the known chambers, sealed within a room perfectly aligned with the stars? What if the box in the king chamber is a decoy, placed to mislead future seekers? The builders might have anticipated that curiosity would eventually lead explorers through the visible pathways, while the most sacred destination remained untouched in darkness. There is also the possibility that the pyramid's inner world reflects changing ideas during construction. Perhaps plans were altered by new religious beliefs, or by sudden revelations about structure and strength. The relocation of a burial chamber or the creation of new ventilation shafts would then be a result of evolving understanding rather than a single fixed vision. The absence of documentation makes it impossible to know. We see only the final form, not the story of how it came to be. This silence from the past is felt in every corridor. The walls show no scenes of daily life. No prayers are written, no directions are given. The pyramid feels like a machine, precise and without ornament, but a machine created for what? To lift a soul to eternity, to mirror the heavens on earth, to prove the divine power of a king. Perhaps all these reasons merge into one purpose too grand for written language. When researchers try to reconstruct how the builders thought, they rely on fragments. A measurement here, a pattern there, a hint from a later period of Egyptian history. They build theories and test them against the stone, always aware that the true intent might be something they have not yet imagined. The Great Pyramid does not yield answers easily. Every conclusion must be earned, slowly, carefully, respectfully. The lack of blueprints is not a void in the historical record. It is part of the pyramid's message. Knowledge is not always granted. Sometimes it must be sought. The builders wanted their work to stand taller than explanation. They trusted future generations to be curious enough to look deeper. And so, across thousands of years, the challenge remains. The ancient architects left no written plans, because the pyramid itself is the plan. To read it, we must continue searching through stone, through science, and through the limits of our imagination. Only by looking beyond what is visible can we hope to learn what the builders knew. Only by listening to the silence inside can we hope to understand why they built a structure that holds its secrets with such strength and grace. Centuries after the Great Pyramid was sealed, long after the workers had laid their final blocks and the architects had vanished into history, the first intruders came. They stood before a mountain of stone with no doors and no hints, only a silent promise that something precious waited inside. Curiosity has always been a powerful force. It pulled explorers across deserts and oceans. It led them to the north face of the pyramid with tools and torches and the certainty that a treasure must lie hidden beyond the visible wall. The earliest recorded breakthrough into the pyramid happened not through careful study but through sheer force. An entrance was hacked open in the 9th century by men who were driven by legend. They expected gold. They expected royal remains dressed in jewels. They expected walls covered in sacred spells revealing the prayers of kings. What they found was silence. Rough tunnels carved by those early seekers still exist, marking a violent path into the structure. Their eagerness to uncover secrets destroyed the piece of stone that had remained undisturbed since Khufu's time. Yet even they reached only a small part of the interior, leaving most of the hidden world untouched. The lack of treasure puzzled them, and it puzzled those who followed. Why would a tomb of such power appear empty? Did ancient thieves reach the king long before? Or was the burial chamber somewhere else, still concealed beyond what these early explorers could find? Instead of answers, every attempt to uncover the truth led to deeper uncertainty. In the 19th century, the search became more determined and more destructive. The English explorer Howard Vyse arrived at Giza with ambition and dynamite. He believed that if hidden chambers existed, only explosives would reach them. He blasted through stone, carving passages where none had been planned, risking the stability of the ancient structure. His methods were harsh and careless, but not without outcome. He discovered the relieving chambers above the king chamber, revealing those massive granite beams and the red quarry marks left by workers who built them. The names found there confirmed that the pyramid was indeed constructed under Khufu, a fact that some had doubted before. Weiss did not find the treasure he hoped for, but he found proof of authorship. The pyramid's identity was no longer only legend. The name of the king was written within its bones. Still, Weiss and others during that era did far more harm than good. They created confusion by disturbing passages and leaving behind debris. They took measurements with limited accuracy and drew conclusions without understanding context. The scientific world learned from their mistakes. Archaeology evolved. Curiosity alone was no longer enough. Patience and preservation became the foundation of exploration. Mapping the interior of the Great Pyramid became a mission guided by caution. Explorers crawled into narrow spaces with lanterns and hope. Every chamber was examined. The subterranean chamber offered no treasure, only mystery. The Queen Chamber revealed shafts that seemed to lead somewhere, but ended abruptly. The Grand Gallery led upward to the granite sarcophagus, empty and waiting. Each space felt like a clue missing the rest of the puzzle. Scholars debated what these chambers represented. Some believed that the Queen Chamber held religious significance. Others thought it was simply a locking mechanism or a part of construction left unused. The subterranean chamber raised even stranger questions. If it was never finished, why was so much effort placed into carving a room so deep in the bedrock? Its rough surfaces and that downward shaft gave the impression of abandonment. Yet abandonment requires a reason, and that reason remained unknown. As the 20th century began, archaeologists discovered workers' camps near the pyramids. They learned that the builders were respected laborers, fed and cared for by the state. This changed the story. The pyramid was not an act of tyranny, but one of devotion. It was the pride of a nation. That understanding made the desire to protect the monument stronger. Each chamber, even if understood, became a relic that must remain untouched. Explorers now faced a barrier that was not made of limestone. It was made of ethics. Scholars feared that further physical intrusion might destroy vital evidence forever. Drilling blindly through stone could cause collapses. Breaking through walls might erase markings or clues that were critical to decoding the structure. The era of using brute force had passed. The pyramid demanded respect, but respect did not quiet curiosity. Instead, curiosity adapted. Explorers in the modern age approached the Great Pyramid with new eyes and new tools, determined to learn without causing harm. They brought measuring devices, not chisels. They brought careful observation instead of explosions. They understood that the structure itself was a primary source of knowledge, and that every misplaced strike against its stones risked erasing irreplaceable history. One of the greatest shifts in pyramid research came when scholars realized that even a room long thought to be fully understood might still hide undiscovered secrets. The shafts leading from the Queen Chamber are the perfect example. At first, they were considered simple air channels, but that belief changed when it became clear they were carefully aligned with stars that held spiritual significance. They pointed toward regions of the sky linked to divine rebirth and eternal kingship. If those shafts had a higher purpose, what did they lead to? Were they symbolic paths for the pharaoh's soul, or did they connect to hidden spaces beyond? In the late 20th century, tiny robotic probes were developed to explore the deep interior without disturbing the surrounding stone. One such robot crawled upward inside a narrow shaft from the Queen Chamber. The journey was slow and tense. The robot creeping through darkness older than recorded history. Then it stopped. Not because the shaft ended, but because a limestone block blocked its path. This block was not rough and unfinished. It was smooth, cut with intention, and fitted with copper elements embedded into its surface. Behind that small door lay more mystery. Another robot later drilled a very small hole through the block and peered inside. What it found was another space and another sealed door. Two barriers in a path that had once been thought useless. The discovery of those doors did not reveal treasure, but it revealed a hidden logic in the design of the pyramid. The ancient engineers sealed these pathways with purpose. They did not expect anyone to enter. They believed these passages were to remain untouched until the distant future, or perhaps forever. Technology had finally reached a point where the sealed pathways could be seen, but still not physically entered. Other passages also demanded attention. Some explorers used mirrors and small lights to look deeper into areas that once seemed unreachable. They mapped tiny corners, searching for signs of continued corridors. They listened for echoes that might reveal empty spaces beyond the visible walls. Sometimes the stone gave hints, a hollow sound, a faint draft, a shift in temperature, clues that suggested the builders left more rooms inside than anyone had imagined. Older theories began to fall away. The long-held belief that the pyramid had yielded all its secrets became impossible to accept. Instead, the truth became clear. We had barely scratched the surface. The ancient explorers and the early European investigators thought they had reached the core. Modern science showed they had only reached the beginning. Every time a new tool examined the stones, more questions formed. The interior seemed planned with a complexity far beyond a simple tomb. The layout did not match any other pyramid from any period. Its design was unique, layered with intention. Scholars pondered whether the pyramid was altered during construction. If so, the current known passages might represent abandoned plans rather than final purpose. Perhaps the king's body was originally meant to lie in the subterranean chamber, then moved upward into the queen chamber, and finally relocated into another chamber that remains hidden. The unknown fueled speculation that sometimes drifted into fantasy. Writers filled books with theories about lost civilizations or impossible technologies. They imagined that the pyramid was a power station built by forgotten gods, or a beacon to communicate with the heavens. These stories entertained many but distracted from the quiet and steady work of scholars who knew that the truth, though mysterious, was rooted in human achievement. Yet the truth was still astonishing. The builders understood materials and forces with a mastery that modern engineering can respect. They made choices that defied assumptions about what ancient civilizations could accomplish. Their lack of written plans only made the achievement more profound. The more carefully researchers studied the pyramid, the more they appreciated the intelligence behind its construction. The angles of the passages, the alignment of the shafts, the layering of the relieving chambers, the geometry of the overall shape, all pointed toward a mind that saw architecture not just as shelter, but as symbolism and science combined. Every explorer who entered the pyramid felt a sense of humility. They walked through halls built by hands thousands of years before their time. They touched stones that had never moved since the day they were placed. They breathed air in chambers that were carved to honor a king whose face they could barely imagine. This humility led to one inevitable conclusion. In order to discover what truly lies inside the pyramid, the old ways of exploration had to end. Force must give way to finesse. Curiosity must partner with caution. The future of discovery would not be led by picks and hammers. It would be led by light and particles and mathematics. The era of destructive exploration faded into history. A new era was ready to begin, one that would allow the pyramid to speak without being wounded, one that would reveal secrets not by breaking walls but by listening to what lies behind them. The past had given us partial answers. The next step was to see what the stone itself could tell us, if only we had the right way to look. Even when explorers stopped using force, the pyramid continued to resist understanding. It is not a structure eager to reveal itself. Its design is a masterwork of redirection. Corridors lead not to chambers but to dead ends. Shafts that seem like pathways to discovery instead reach sealed doors. Rooms that appear central to the pyramid's purpose hold no inscriptions. Each discovery feels like a carefully placed distraction. The closer we come to believing we have found the truth, the more the monument reminds us that we are still wandering along the edges of its intention. Scientists began to measure every accessible space with new precision. Surveying teams created detailed maps of the interior. Engineers studied the forces that held the structure together and wondered how hollow spaces could exist unseen. Physicists arrived carrying entirely different ideas. They looked at the pyramid not as a tomb, but as a solid mass of material capable of shielding and distorting particles from the sky. They suggested that space itself could reveal what stone refused to show. All the while, the known passages continued to draw visitors from around the world. People crouched through the descending corridor, feeling the heat and closeness of air that has circulated through rock since the earliest days of the ancient kingdom. They climbed the grand gallery, marveling at the precise angles that seemed to reach upward with the ambition of a civilization that believed its king would rule eternally among the stars. They entered the king chamber and stood before the granite box, rough on the inside, smooth on the outside, echoing with the weight of silence. They looked upward toward the stacked relieving chambers but could not see them. They stood on the visible path, unaware that a much greater world of stone surrounded them. Throughout the 20th century, each new team of researchers brought with it a hope that this would be the group to finally locate the lost burial chamber of Khufu. Some believed the chamber might lie beneath the current floor of the subterranean chamber, buried deeper into the rock. Others believed the chamber was suspended high above the grand gallery, sealed behind a barrier so perfectly placed that not even a whisper of empty space could be detected by traditional means. But each excavation, each measurement, each analysis ended with the same result. The pyramid remained mostly unknowable. This stubborn silence changed the question from how to find new spaces to how to observe without touching. The idea of non-intrusive discovery seemed like a dream at first. How could one identify a room inside a block of stone by simply looking from the outside? But the universe had already given an answer to this question long before the pyramid was built. Invisible particles constantly rained down from the sky, passing through flesh and stone as if those materials barely existed. These particles carry with them a map of density and mass. All that was required was a way to listen to what they could tell us. That realization would transform the study of the Great Pyramid. The destructive actions of the past would be replaced by the quiet precision of physics. The explorers who once hammered their way through limestone would be replaced by scientists who waited patiently for particles from outer space to reveal the hidden shape of a monument that has watched more than 40 centuries pass. To understand the pyramid, humanity would need to embrace tools far more delicate and far older than chisels. It would need to harness the energy of the cosmos itself. The Great Pyramid, once a fortress against all who came to disturb it, was about to be unlocked by the most unlikely of keys. Not metal, not stone, but tiny fragments of starlight that had traveled across the universe only to collide with the silent heart of a structure built for a king. The story of exploration was changing. The next step would no longer belong to those who dug through rock, but to those who could see through it. For thousands of years, the Great Pyramid guarded its interior with silence thicker than its limestone walls. No sound escaped from the concealed spaces. No whisper told of hidden corridors or chambers untouched by time. But the modern world has learned that sometimes silence itself can speak. And the first step to hearing the pyramid was to abandon the idea that human strength or human eyes alone could unlock its secrets. Instead, researchers turned to tools that could sense what the stone tried to hide. Ground-penetrating radar was among the earliest methods. Scientists placed antennas against the surface and sent pulses of energy into the limestone. These pulses traveled through the blocks, bouncing back when they encountered a boundary or a void. The radar created a faint picture drawn from echoes. If the stone was solid, the signal returned smoothly. If it detected a gap, the response shifted. The results were subtle and required careful interpretation, but they showed that the pyramid was not uniformly solid. There were places where emptiness seemed to linger behind the stone, like breaths held inside a sleeping giant. Thermal imaging offered another approach. As the heat of day faded into night, the temperature of the stones shifted. Solid blocks cooled at a steady rate, but areas above hidden spaces behaved differently. Heat lingered longer in some places and escaped rapidly in others, creating gentle patterns on the surface that suggested hollows beneath. The pyramid began to reveal itself through temperature, showing that secrets hidden in darkness could be traced by the slow rhythm of cooling stone. Three-dimensional scans refined the understanding of the pyramid's shape. Laser mapping captured the exterior with unprecedented detail, measuring tiny distortions in the alignment of blocks. These measurements hinted at structural adjustments that might have concealed internal features. Engineers compared their findings with known chambers and speculated about what might exist beyond the visible map. Each tool gave a new layer of understanding, yet none provided a clear picture. Robotics emerged to go where humans could not. Tiny machines crawled through shafts narrower than a person's shoulders. These robots carried cameras and lights, their metal frames scraping softly against limestone formed in ancient seas. They revealed smooth walls, copper fittings, and sealed doors that no living hand had touched since the time of Khufu. Their discoveries confirmed something astonishing. The builders had created pathways that were never meant for human use. They were symbolic corridors, hidden by intention. This opened the possibility that the true architecture of the pyramid lay not in the rooms humans could enter, but in the hidden spaces shaped for eternity. Still, each tool faced a limit. Radar blurred, thermal signatures confused. Robots could only move where a shaft already existed. The pyramid remained mostly shadow, refusing to fully reveal its shape. If the structure had more rooms, more pathways, or a secret chamber that held the missing story of the king, they stayed beyond reach. The search demanded something entirely new, a method that would not drill through stone, break walls, or disturb ancient design. A method that could see through millions of tons of rock as if they were made of mist. A method so delicate that the pyramid would never even know it was being studied. The answer came not from archaeology, but from the sky. Cosmic rays, tiny particles born from distant explosions in the universe, rain on Earth every moment. They pass through air, through our bodies, and through stone. Some of these particles are called muons. They are small, fast, and capable of traveling great distances before fading away. When muons strike stone, some are absorbed and some pass through. A solid block allows fewer to continue. A hidden space allows more. By measuring how many muons reach detectors placed inside or around the pyramid, scientists can create images of density. These images reveal shapes where stone does not exist. Muons cannot be bribed. They cannot be fooled. They come from beyond the stars and arrive every second in countless numbers. They pass through the pyramid silently, painting invisible maps with every particle. All the scientists had to do was learn how to read those maps. This technique, known as muon tomography, changed everything. The pyramid could no longer hide behind its massive walls. The universe itself would expose the truth. Detectors were placed at key points inside the pyramid. They waited like patient eyes in the darkness, collecting the trails of muons as they passed through limestone shaped by ancient hands. Data gathered slowly, day after day, night after night, building a picture not of surfaces but of the invisible heart of the monument. The early results were rough, like a foggy outline of a face whose features you can almost recognize. But even in those early days, the pyramid began to reveal a truth that stunned the world. There were spaces inside that no one had ever entered. Spaces large enough to be called chambers. Spaces positioned where no known passage existed. The pyramid was not a simple structure with a few rooms. It was layered with hidden architecture, sealed so completely that even centuries of explorers had failed to find it. As the resolution improved, the findings became clearer. Above the Grand Gallery was an emptiness where solid stone should exist. A void longer than the gallery itself, tall and unmistakably intentional. Many doubted the result at first, believing it to be an error in the measurement. But repeated experiments confirmed it. The void was real. The Great Pyramid harbored a secret space untouched by human hands for more than 4,500 years. This was only the beginning. Other anomalies appeared near the north face, close to the unknown true entrance. A smaller space seemed to exist behind a structure of blocks that once formed a smooth outer layer. These discoveries suggested a complexity far beyond any previous understanding. The ancient architects had created not only what we can see, but also what we cannot. Yet muon tomography faced limits. It could reveal shape, but not purpose. It could show emptiness, but not what that emptiness contained. Was it a construction chamber used to reduce weight above the Grand Gallery? Was it a symbolic room designed to protect the king's ascent to the stars? Or was it a sealed burial chamber, the true resting place of Khufu, untouched by grave robbers and preserved in silence? For now, the void offered only questions. Other technologies worked together with muon studies to refine the picture. Ground-penetrating radar was once again applied, this time informed by what the muons had shown. The radar tried to trace boundaries, looking for edges of hidden rooms. But the density of limestone and the depth of the void made clear evidence difficult to obtain. Thermal imaging also returned, collecting data over multiple seasons to compare how heat moved across the pyramid's skin. Each scan revealed small irregularities aligned with the suspected voids. The structure responded to the changing desert temperatures in ways that suggested more hollows remained concealed. Every new result pointed to one truth: the Great Pyramid is far from fully explored. Scientists began to reconsider the entire purpose of the known chambers. Perhaps the traditional interpretation had been reversed. Perhaps the king chamber was not the final destination of the pharaoh, but part of a more complex route. Perhaps the queen chamber was not symbolic alone, but a waypoint in a spiritual journey designed through geometry and alignment. Even the shafts once thought to be ventilation now appeared as clues leading towards something greater. Their angles suggested a map connecting the interior to the cosmos. The ancient Egyptians believed the eternal kingdom of the pharaoh lay among the stars. They believed that the soul would ascend to join the gods of the night sky. With that belief, a hidden chamber aligned upward would not be a surprise. It would be expected. Slowly, the story of exploration shifted. The pyramid was no longer a simple tomb that had been emptied long ago. It was a machine of eternity, a device constructed to guide a soul from Earth to the heavens. The sealed spaces could hold the instructions for that journey. They could hold objects meant to protect the king beyond death. Or they could hold only silence, a silence filled with sacred meaning. Scientists knew they had reached a threshold. The hidden chambers were no longer myth. They were measurable and real. The challenge now was access without harm. No one wanted to repeat the destruction of earlier centuries. No one wanted to risk damaging the last untouched wonders inside. Tools must evolve again. Caution must guide every choice. The pyramid had begun to speak, and the message was simple: come closer, but do not rush. Muons continued to drift silently through the Great Pyramid, revealing more with each passing moment. The detectors captured data in volumes so large that computers needed months to assemble a clear image. Scientists watched the results with a mix of caution and wonder. They knew that the smallest misunderstanding could mislead the world. They checked each point of information against every other tool available, ensuring that what they saw was truth and not illusion. The results held firm. The void above the Grand Gallery was not a trick of measurement. It was as real as the stones surrounding it. Its size stunned those who studied it. A chamber more than 30 meters long, positioned deep inside the structure, sealed in a place where no known passage led. This was not a gap formed by accident or collapse. It was too precise for that, too intentional. The builders shaped this absence of stone with the same care that they shaped every block around it. The existence of this space forced the scientific community to rethink everything about the pyramid's internal blueprint. If a room so large and so central had gone undetected for thousands of years, what else had been overlooked? The void became a question that echoed through the world of archaeology. And that question carried another beneath it. Why create such a chamber and then hide it so completely? Some believed the answer might relate to weight and stress. The Grand Gallery supports massive stone blocks above it, and the void could act as a relief zone to prevent collapse. But the shape of the void and its elevation suggested something more purposeful than simple engineering. It sat like a secret companion to the gallery below, following the same angle, the same stretch from south to north, almost like a shadow carved into the heart of the pyramid. Others dared to suggest what many were thinking quietly. The void could be the missing burial chamber of Khufu. If treasure had never been found where the early explorers looked, perhaps they had looked in the wrong place. A chamber so well hidden might still hold objects untouched by time, preserved by darkness. But belief alone was not enough. Careful science demanded certainty before dreams could rise into claims. While researchers debated, engineers and conservators shared a different concern. Even if the void was a chamber, even if it held the greatest archaeological discovery in history, how could it be reached without harm? The pyramid is a delicate balance of weight and geometry. A single misplaced hole, a single stone removed in the wrong place, could damage not only the void, but the known passages and chambers that define the identity of the monument. The answer would not come quickly. It would require new forms of robotics, new methods of drilling microscopic pathways, even new ways of guiding cameras through the tiniest of openings. Every step must be done with the approval of preservation experts, because the pyramid is not only a mystery to solve, but also a treasure to protect. In the meantime, scientists refined their images. More detectors were placed. Data from multiple angles began to merge into a clearer map of the hidden interior. The void became sharper, its edges better defined. And then another surprise emerged. On the north face, near the original unseen entrance, a corridor appeared within. The data. It seemed to rise slightly and then flatten like a hidden path waiting for footsteps that would never come. This corridor was far smaller than the large void, but it was just as unexpected. A 9-meter space, sealed from every side, positioned carefully near the outer layers. It resembled a passage built to give access to something else, something deeper, something still further inside. This discovery was a message from the builders across 45 centuries. Look here, there is more. The pyramid, always the silent observer of time, had begun to give hints, not through language carved in hieroglyphs, but through the shape of emptiness. These new insights arrived gently, without a single stone disturbed. The desert around the pyramid remained unchanged. Tourists continued to climb through the same ancient passages, but beneath their feet and above their heads, secrets stirred. The next stage of exploration would require even greater patience. The technology existed to see what stones concealed, but not yet to enter the voids themselves. Teams across the world imagined the possibilities. They designed robots the size of insects. They engineered cameras thinner than reeds. They built systems that could bend, crawl, and navigate the narrow veins of the pyramid without scraping its walls. But each design waited on approval, because nothing could move forward without certainty that the structure would remain unharmed. Science stood at the edge of breakthrough. A door of understanding stood inches from opening, yet could not be touched. The pyramid watched as humanity prepared itself to uncover what had slept since the Age of Kings. It would allow discovery only when we proved that knowledge could coexist with preservation. For the first time in human history, we could see the invisible inside the most famous monument on Earth. The stones had begun to speak through the language of particles. They had told us there was more to find, much more. We were listening, and we would continue listening until the final chamber revealed the story that has waited longer than any written history. For most of human history, the Great Pyramid was explored by light and touch. Torches flickered against ancient walls, hands sought seams between stones, ears listened for hollow echoes that might reveal a hidden space. But the pyramid remained silent. It had been sealed in a way that defeated every ordinary sense. No painting or inscription described its interior. No map survived from the time of its creation. The builders constructed a structure so perfectly closed that the questions it held could outlive entire civilizations. And yet, above this world and far beyond the understanding of the ancient architects, the universe had already prepared the way to reveal those secrets. Invisible particles born from violent storms in deep space rained constantly upon Earth. They passed through rock as easily as light passes through air. They traveled through mountains and cities, through skin and bone, through pyramids built for kings. They were always there, but only in the modern era did humanity learn how to notice them. These particles are called muons. They are created when cosmic rays from exploding stars strike the upper atmosphere. Each muon exists for only the briefest moment, but they move so quickly that before they vanish, they reach the ground and even continue into the earth below. Their presence is silent, unstoppable, and entirely natural. Every second, countless muons fall upon the Giza plateau. Some pass directly through the Great Pyramid. Some are absorbed by the stones, and some slip through empty space hidden within the structure. If one could measure how many muons arrive at different points inside, then one could detect where there is rock and where there is void. The pyramid would map itself using the language of the cosmos. This idea is called muon tomography, a technique that transforms particle physics into archaeology. It had been used successfully in other contexts, like studying volcanoes without drilling into them, or inspecting thick concrete walls without breaking them apart. It required patience and extremely sensitive detectors, but in return it offered a view that no human eye could match. When the Scan Pyramids mission began in the second decade of the 21st century, scientists placed muon detectors inside and around the Great Pyramid. They waited. Hours passed. Days. Weeks. Millions upon millions of muons streamed through the air, through the pyramid, and into the detectors. Their traces were recorded with extreme precision. Each tiny path was a clue. Each cosmic particle was a messenger carrying information from the interior of the stone mountain. At first, the results looked messy. Noise from the outside world blurred the early images. The density of the limestone varied naturally from block to block, confusing the signals. Computers worked tirelessly to filter the data and compare results from different angles. Scientists fed the information into mathematical models to reconstruct the interior, almost like a physician using scanning tools to view human bones beneath skin. Slowly, the shapes sharpened. Slowly, the chamber layout we thought we knew began to reshape itself before our eyes. What emerged from the first major muon scans shocked researchers, historians, and the entire world. Above the Grand Gallery, a place once believed to be filled entirely with solid stone, there was a space, a void, a secret chamber longer than the gallery itself and tall enough to stand within. It stretched at an upward angle, aligned with careful precision along the central axis of the pyramid. Its location was not accidental. This was no flaw or collapse. It was a planned space deliberately concealed within one of the most famous monuments on Earth. The builders had sculpted not only stone, but emptiness. When these findings were announced in the year 2017, the response was a mixture of awe and disbelief. Some argued that the void might be a simple relieving space, a cavity left to reduce pressure on the structure below. But the design seemed too precise for that. The shape appeared continuous from south to north, suggesting an internal architecture with intent. Many could not help wondering whether this hidden space might be a chamber of great significance. Was this the long-lost resting place of Khufu? Was the true burial room discovered not by breaking through stone, but by listening to particles from deep space? Debates grew, not about whether the chamber existed, for the evidence was strong and repeatedly verified, but about what purpose the chamber served. Muon scans revealed emptiness, but they could not reveal objects. The void might hold a statue of the king, sealed forever in darkness. It might hold stones arranged in symbolic form. It might contain nothing but air, a spiritual corridor intended only for a pharaoh's soul. The mystery deepened, and with each passing month the data improved. The void became more defined, its shape clearer, its scale larger than anyone had expected. But that was not the only discovery. Near the north face, close to the original entrance that had been hidden by casing stones long ago, another anomaly appeared in the data. It was smaller, about 9 meters long, positioned behind a layer of blocks that once formed the smooth outer face. This narrow corridor seemed to rise slightly and then flatten, suggesting a ramp or a passage. It was sealed at both ends, accessible from no known point. Engineers examined the geometry and realized that this corridor was placed directly behind the chevron-shaped stones that mark the start of the descending passage. Those stones act as a form of stress relief, but behind them, the hidden corridor hinted at something more. It might have been a construction access passage that was never meant to be reopened, or it might lead toward a deeper chamber still undiscovered. It might be the beginning of the route to the large void above the Grand Gallery. These two findings changed the conversation entirely. The Great Pyramid was not solid. It was not fully known. It was a structure filled with secrets, intentionally sealed from every side. The imagination of the world ignited. Was the pyramid designed to hide the most important chamber in history from both ancient thieves and modern explorers? Did the architects foresee the possibility that one day, long after their civilization faded, future beings would discover a way to reveal the truth without breaking a single stone. To understand how remarkable this is, one must consider the timeline. The Great Pyramid was completed around the year 2560 before the Common Era. Cosmic rays and muons have existed since the birth of the universe, long before pyramids or planets. Yet more than 45 centuries passed before anyone realized that those ancient cosmic messengers could uncover what humans could not. The same starlight fragments that passed through the stones when they were first laid are now unlocking the secrets hidden inside them. The builders could not have predicted this, or could they? It is difficult not to wonder. While muon detectors accumulated data, scientists used other tools to confirm and refine the findings. Three-dimensional modeling was combined with thermal imaging to observe how heat flowed across the pyramid's surface. Slight temperature variations matched the suspected void boundaries. Engineers studied the mechanical behavior of the structure under immense weight and saw how the void could serve both function and symbolism. Thus, multiple lines of evidence converged on the same truth. There was an entire hidden level in the pyramid's design, concealed as carefully as the sacred heart of a living organism. The old view of the pyramid as a straightforward tomb crumbled. The monument began to resemble a cosmic machine, a bridge between Earth and the heavens. Ancient Egyptians believed the pharaoh became a god after death, sailing to the celestial realm on a pathway aligned to the stars. The internal shafts pointing to specific constellations were not decorative. They were guides for the king's soul. With the new discoveries, some renewed the bold idea that the pyramid was a stargate in symbolic form, mapping the journey of a divine spirit to eternity. This interpretation does not require fantasy. It comes from known Egyptian beliefs. The pyramid was a ladder of transformation. Its inner architecture served myth and mathematics together. The void above the grand gallery may represent the final ascent, while the hidden corridor could mark the threshold. The sealed nature of these spaces supports the idea that they were never meant for human feet. Only the pharaoh's spiritual form would pass through them. Only a soul that survived death would find the path to the secret chamber. Others still lean toward a practical explanation. They argue that the void is a weight-reducing zone designed to prevent structural failure, but even they admit that its size and placement defy simple logic. If it were merely practical, why give it such length and symmetry? Why hide it so completely? Why place it above the grand gallery, a space that already employed an elaborate system of relieving blocks above the king chamber? The questions multiply faster than the answers. One thing is certain: the Great Pyramid is far more sophisticated than once believed. It embodies a union of science, symbolism, and celestial understanding that challenges modern assumptions. The builders worked with astonishing precision. They aligned the pyramid to true north with a degree of accuracy difficult to achieve even with modern instruments. They crafted the base so level that it varies by only a few centimeters across a distance of many hundreds of meters. They used granite in places requiring strength and limestone where lighter framing was needed. They designed inner passages with angles and measurements linked to the stars, the seasons, and the ancient worldview of eternity. Muon tomography has allowed us to see through that ancient design without disturbing it. The method honors the structure's dignity. It listens rather than strikes. It waits rather than rushes, and it will continue to reveal more with time. As detectors are placed in new positions, the view becomes sharper and deeper. The large void that stunned the world may be only one piece of a larger hidden system. Some scientists predict that smaller chambers connect to it, forming a network that will reshape our map of the interior. Others think the true burial chamber may still lie concealed behind a wall we have not yet studied, with sufficient particle sensitivity. The future of pyramid exploration now relies on technology that can fit into spaces too tight for a human arm. Tiny robots are being designed to travel through openings no wider than a few fingers. Fiber optic cameras could slip into microscopic holes drilled without cracking a single block. These machines may one day enter the voids to show humanity what has been waiting in darkness for thousands of years. If such a moment comes, it will redefine our understanding of the ancient world. We will learn whether Khufu still lies inside his pyramid. We will discover whether treasures or inscriptions remain untouched. We will see how the builders shaped the sacred heart of their most important monument. And even if the hidden chamber contains nothing more than empty air, that emptiness will speak volumes about intention, belief, and the meaning of eternity. The Great Pyramid was built to withstand time and to challenge all who seek to understand it. The architects left no written plans because the structure itself was the message. It was a message intended for those who would one day possess the knowledge to see what human senses alone could not. That day has come. The universe has shown us the way. The stones have begun to answer. Muon tomography has given humanity its first true glimpse into the unseen. But what comes next will demand even more courage and restraint, for the greatest secret inside the pyramid is still protected, still sealed, still waiting. For more than 4,500 years, wind and sunlight swept across the north face of the Great Pyramid, while millions of visitors stared at its towering sides. They admired the structure's precision. They walked through the forced entrance that early explorers cut by brute strength. They descended and climbed through the known paths. Yet none of them realized that only a short distance away, behind the outer layers of limestone, a hidden corridor waited in the dark. It had been sealed since the time of Khufu. No footsteps had touched its floor. No breath from the living world had disturbed the air inside. It existed like a memory the pyramid refused to reveal. This secret passage came into view not through chisels but through cosmic particles. When muon tomography highlighted the mysterious 9-meter void behind the north face, archaeologists began to focus their attention on this specific region. Engineers studied old architectural diagrams and noticed that the position of the newly detected corridor aligned directly behind large triangular stones arranged in a chevron shape. These blocks create a protective structure above the entrance, designed to deflect the crushing weight of millions of tons of stone. They are like the keystones of a hidden arch. Their placement is too precise to be accidental. These stones shield something important. The hidden corridor lies directly behind them. To confirm this invisible discovery, scientists turned to another tool. They used endoscopy, a technique that allows a tiny camera to pass through a space no wider than a pencil. A single drill bit carefully removed a narrow cylinder of mortar from between two stones. Through that small opening, a flexible camera was guided inward. It entered a world where light had not existed since the pyramid was sealed. The beam illuminated a limestone ceiling, curved like a vault. The walls revealed careful craftsmanship. The corridor did not look like a leftover gap from construction. It looked like architecture, planned, deliberate, waiting. The camera explored as far as it could. The corridor stretched onward, flat and steady, but it ended in shadow where the cable could not reach. No one yet knows what lies at its far end. It might lead nowhere. It might be a dead end designed only to redistribute weight from above. But something about its position and shape feels too purposeful for mere structure. Its existence suggests intention that remains hidden from understanding. It might be another piece in a larger internal map, a map of pathways built not for the living, but for the eternal. The north face of the pyramid has always carried mystery. The original entrance lies high above the ground, sealed by blocks so perfectly matched that no seam is visible. Only the forced opening made in the 9th century allowed modern people to enter the descending corridor. But that entrance was not what the builders intended. Somewhere beneath the sealed stones lies the true gateway to the monument. The hidden corridor may connect to this lost entrance. It may be the passage that once guided priests and workers during construction, then was closed forever. If this is true, the corridor may represent the beginning of a secret route into the deeper heart of the pyramid. A route that leads not downward, like the known passages, but inward and upward toward the core. This possibility electrifies those who study the structure. It implies that the ancient builders created more than one internal path, and that the path known today might not be the primary one. The sealed corridor could unlock the entire unknown network of rooms discovered through cosmic particles. Some scientists suggest that the corridor's function could be linked to balancing forces. The enormous weight of the pyramid presses downward with unimaginable pressure. The stone layers must channel that force carefully to avoid collapse. Hidden chambers and corridors might serve as pressure releases, allowing the structure to settle more evenly over time. The engineers of ancient Egypt understood weight with instinct and precision. They could feel the stone speak as they placed each block. The corridor behind the north face might be one of several invisible safety features that hold the pyramid together, even after thousands of years of earthquakes and shifting ground. But even if the corridor served a structural function, that function was executed with remarkable design. It was built as a proper passageway, not simply a void. The roof is carefully shaped. The walls are even. The space is 7 cubits in height, a symbolic measurement in ancient Egyptian numbers. Nothing about it feels accidental. The builders sealed the corridor from both sides. They built trust in the silence of stone. They assumed that no one would ever find or disturb this space. They believed that the secret would remain shielded for eternity. That confidence speaks volumes about their worldview. They were not building for the present. They were building for forever. When the camera first glimpsed this hallway, the atmosphere inside revealed something about time. The surfaces looked untouched, lacking soot from torches or marks from workers who passed through later phases of construction. Even small dust patterns remained undisturbed. This suggests the corridor was sealed early in construction, then built around, buried deeper and deeper under layers of stone while the pyramid grew above it. That means whatever lies beyond was buried by intention, not by chance. The unknown beckons. If the corridor leads to another chamber, that chamber might be the most important discovery in the history of Egyptology. It could be a funerary chamber preserved since the pyramid's completion, containing objects that would rewrite what we know of ancient ritual. It could be the final resting place of Khufu, hidden in a place where no thief could reach. Even the possibility seems unreal. But now, for the first time, science has provided a direction to follow. Some researchers take a more cautious stance. They warn that excitement must not rush decision-making. The pyramid is fragile in ways that cannot be seen. A small disruption could trigger shifts in pressure that threaten the stability of thousands of stones. An attempt to widen the camera opening could crack surfaces that have survived longer than any city or nation. To reach beyond that sealed corridor, machines must be smaller, tools must be gentler, and patience must be infinite. Yet the story does not end with caution. The very existence of the corridor and the larger void above proves that the Great Pyramid is not fully understood. It reminds us that the known chambers are only fragments of a masterpiece. The builders left far more hidden behind the walls. They shaped a labyrinth of mysteries that was meant to last beyond the memory of the culture that created it. The sealed corridor is a message. The builders are calling out across time. They are saying, look closer. There is more to see. Much more. One day, technology will reach the point where exploration can continue without risk. One day, a probe will travel the entire length of the corridor. It will peer around that final unseen corner. And in that moment, humanity will witness something that no living creature has seen since the age when pyramids were born. Whether it finds treasure or silence, whether it reveals answers or deeper questions, the simple act of seeing will be enough. It will prove that the patient stones of Giza can still yield secrets to the future. The ancient corridor behind the north face is the beginning of that future. It is the first step of the path toward understanding the greatest monument ever built. And beyond that sealed passage, the next secret waits in darkness, waits for us to be ready, waits for the moment when curiosity and respect finally unlock what the builders meant to hide until the time was right. Deep inside the Great Pyramid, beyond pathways that explorers have crawled and climbed for centuries, beyond the shafts mapped by robots and the voids revealed by cosmic particles, there may be a room where time has stopped, a chamber sealed before history began, a space built with the belief that no one living should ever enter again. For ancient Egyptians, death was not an end but a journey. The body of the king was a vessel. His pyramid was the engine that launched his soul toward the stars. Some rooms inside that sacred engine were never meant for human eyes. They were places where divinity awakened, where the soul separated from flesh and rose toward eternity. If such a chamber still exists, sealed behind stone and silence, it has been waiting longer than any monument on Earth. The known chambers of the pyramid give only hints of this deeper purpose. The subterranean chamber lies unfinished, carved into the living rock below the structure. It feels raw and abandoned, as if a grand idea began there and was replaced by something greater. Above it, the queen chamber sits at the center of the pyramid's mass, aligned along the axis that carries profound symbolic meaning. Its shafts point towards stars associated with rebirth and celestial power. Some believe a statue once stood there, a guardian form that held the king's essence as his journey began. Still higher lies the king chamber, built from red granite that came from many hundred kilometers away. The enormous blocks are fitted with a precision that defies imagination. The chamber is capped with layers of massive beams that prevent collapse through pure engineering genius. In its center sits the granite box often called a sarcophagus. It is empty. Its interior is roughly carved. Its purpose remains uncertain. Was it ever meant to hold a body? Or is it a symbolic container for a transformation that only the gods could witness? Above the king chamber are spaces known as relieving chambers. They were discovered by blasting, an unfortunate moment in archaeology that nonetheless revealed essential truth. These rooms show how the builders used geometry to shape the forces pressing down from the pyramid above. Their existence proves that every void in the structure might serve a purpose both practical and mystical. Stone and symbol are inseparable in the world of ancient Egyptian belief. Yet if these chambers were all the pyramid held, the mystery would be manageable. We could say that these three rooms formed the heart of the structure and that everything else was scaffolding or support. But the pyramid resists such simplicity. The Muon scans have shown that the known chambers are not alone. There are larger and smaller voids sealed so perfectly that not a single explorer through any century ever suspected them. There are pathways behind walls that lead somewhere deeper, somewhere that was meant to remain unknown. This leads to a question that has haunted archaeology for generations. Was Khufu ever found? The honest answer is no. The body of the pharaoh who commanded the construction of the greatest monument on Earth has never been recovered. The tomb of Khufu remains missing. Some say it was plundered in ancient times, but if thieves had broken in, why leave the granite box behind? Why take nothing else? Why leave no trace of disturbance in passages that are still smooth and unbroken? Others argue that the king chamber was not the final burial place, but a symbolic stage on a longer journey. The true resting place may lie in a hidden chamber that is part of the pyramid's original, secret design. A chamber no thief could find because no passage leads to it. A chamber no explorer could access because the builders sealed every path before the pyramid was complete. A chamber that the large void above the grand gallery might finally reveal. If this sacred room exists, what might be inside? Perhaps nothing but air. In the ancient Egyptian understanding of the cosmos, nothingness could hold profound power. The absence of objects could reflect the presence of divinity. A clean and empty chamber could be the space where the king shed his human identity and rose among the gods. The journey might not require physical treasures, but spiritual alignment. Or the chamber might contain the greatest archaeological discovery imaginable, objects crafted from gold and precious materials that were believed necessary for life beyond death. Inscriptions explaining beliefs earlier than any known text, scrolls or tablets that describe the hidden logic of pyramid construction, even the intact remains of Khufu himself, preserved in a room untouched by any hand since the day the entrance was sealed. Such a discovery would change our understanding of history in a single moment. But science is careful. It does not leap to conclusions. Scholars remind us that many pyramids contained symbolic chambers. Many royal tombs were robbed in ancient times, leaving emptiness that reflects loss rather than design. They advise that excitement must not rewrite evidence. They insist that hope cannot replace proof. And yet, the possibility remains alive. It grows stronger with every new scan. It whispers through the voids, as if the stones themselves are urging us forward. Why hide a chamber so deep? Why protect it so fiercely? The Egyptians believed that the soul of a king became a star among the gods. To reach that destiny, the body must be protected against chaos. The tomb must remain inviolate. Even the idea of intruders could disrupt the balance of eternity. So the architects created a defense greater than any trap or guardian. They built secrecy into the stone. They left no map. They allowed only the future to discover the truth once humanity had earned the knowledge to proceed without destruction. That moment might soon arrive, but it comes with responsibility heavier than the stones of the pyramid. To enter a sealed chamber is not like opening a door. It is like waking a memory that time itself has guarded. We must choose whether to disturb what the builders designed for eternal peace. Even scientists who dream of the discovery hesitate. They ask whether understanding is worth the risk of unraveling something sacred. If we open a chamber untouched since the age of pyramids, what happens next? Will oxygen rush in and destroy artifacts preserved by ancient air? Will shifting weight threaten the corridors above? Every step must be planned with precision equal to the builders themselves. The tools must be tiny. The movement must be soft. The intention must be pure. Archaeology has changed. It is guided not by conquest but by conservation. For now, the chamber remains an idea supported by evidence. For now, the void above the grand gallery is the closest we have come to touching its boundary. For now, the sealed corridor behind the north face is a hint of the path that leads deeper. The king waits in silence. The structure holds its breath. The most extraordinary truth is this: the pyramid was built not only for the dead, but for the living who would come long after. The ancient Egyptians believed that some knowledge must wait for the right minds and the right moment. They built that belief into stone. This is why the pyramid still has a secret that has waited more than 4,000 years for us to discover it. The greatest challenge in exploring the Great Pyramid is not a wall or a sealed door. It is time. 4,500 years of history press upon every block. The structure stands because the builders intended it to withstand eternity. Any attempt to explore its deepest secrets must respect that intention. We stand at a moment unlike any before. We know there are hidden spaces within. We know where some of them are, but we do not yet know how to reach them without changing the very thing we seek to understand. Modern archaeology has tools the ancient explorers could not imagine. Tiny robots, engineered to slip through openings narrower than a human wrist. Cameras so small they can snake through holes the width of a coin. Fibers that bend like vines to follow the twists of hidden paths. Engineers design these devices with a reverence equal to their curiosity. They know they are not exploring just any structure. They are entering a tomb built for a god-king whose people believed in eternal silence. The shafts of the Queen Chamber gave the first tests of micro-exploration. Robots crawled upward in the tightest spaces, their motors humming softly. They discovered smooth blocks with copper fittings. They drilled with the gentlest bite possible, just wide enough to pass a lens. Behind the first block was another door. Behind that door was more mystery. Even machines could only go so far. The path remained blocked, as if the builders foresaw that future intruders would eventually take this form. It was a reminder that the pyramid was designed not to yield easily. New designs take inspiration from nature. Some robots mimic insects, with flexible legs and soft bodies that compress to fit through slits in stone. Others resemble snakes, able to slither along floors and twist through the smallest turns. Concepts for wingless drones are being tested, machines that can float silently down narrow vertical shafts using gentle air currents. Every innovation brings us closer to entering the hidden voids. but each must pass the test of preservation. If a single scratch mars the ancient limestone, the world loses something irreplaceable. Exploring without touching is the ideal. Muon tomography brought us close to that perfection. It revealed enormous volumes of space without disturbing a single grain of dust. But seeing is not knowing. We need to move from images to direct observation. Even a small probe would allow us to witness what has been locked away for thousands of years. A tiny sphere with a camera inside could roll through the sealed corridor above the north face. It could peer into the darkness of the large void above the grand gallery. It could confirm the existence of objects, or prove that only air fills the hidden spaces. And yet, even a tiny sphere must move through stone. It must pass through a cut or opening that is not part of the original design. Archaeologists must weigh knowledge against risk every time they propose such a step. More recent advances imagine methods that do not require physical access at all. Some ideas use radio frequencies, others rely on gravitational imaging. The most ambitious proposals suggest using quantum sensors to detect variations in the mass of unseen objects. These methods remain experimental. The technology is not yet ready to reveal what lies behind the walls. But research is ongoing. The pressure of curiosity drives innovation forward, just as the weight of limestone presses downward upon the ancient chambers. The pyramid itself has become an active participant in scientific progress. It challenges modern minds to reach higher levels of precision. It demands solutions that are as elegant as the original design. The builders carved secret places and concealed them in such a way that only the most advanced future science could detect them. It is almost as if they wanted the far future to prove itself worthy before entering. It is a test of patience, a test of respect, a test of intelligence. Ethics guide every decision now. The time when explorers blasted their way through stone is long past. A single mistake could cause vibration through the core, shifting blocks that hold the structure in balance. The risk goes beyond lost discoveries. Human lives could be in danger if a collapse ever occurred. The pyramid is a living architecture in its own way. Each block relies on countless others. Every chamber is supported by layers of stone that work together like an immense system of bones and muscles. Any disturbance must be measured with extreme care. This caution slowing the exploration may frustrate some. The world hungers for answers. We crave the revelation of the unknown. We want to say we stood at the edge of history and then stepped beyond it. But the pyramid teaches humility. It reminds us that some secrets are not meant to be taken. They must be earned. Every step into its depths must honor the dead who built it, the king who inspired it, and the ancient civilization whose beliefs shaped it. Therefore, scientists move with purpose but without haste. They design new detectors to increase the clarity of muon imaging. They run computer simulations to predict how stones will respond to the slightest vibration. They practice with prototypes in test chambers that mimic the shapes and angles of the hidden rooms. When the time comes to attempt entry, they will be ready. And the stones will not suffer for their curiosity. The day will arrive when a probe enters the large void or the sealed corridor. A new lens will open upon history. The camera will turn slowly, its light falling upon surfaces last seen by workers who lived before the invention of writing in many lands. The images will travel across the world in moments, and in that moment, humanity will take a breath together. We will hear a whisper from the past. Whether we find a treasure or a simple chamber of silence, the truth will change us. That first glimpse will mark the beginning of a new era in archaeology. Not an era of breaking and taking, but an era of partnership between science and the ancient world. The Great Pyramid has endured thousands of years without surrendering its final secret. Now, for the first time, the possibility of a respectful unveiling feels close. Technology is nearly ready. Understanding is nearly deep enough. But the last threshold remains. We must choose our approach wisely. For the question is no longer whether the chamber exists. The question is whether we are prepared to enter a place that has survived more than 40 centuries untouched. We must decide what it means to explore the sacred. We must decide what temple of silence deserves. And we must listen to the lesson the pyramid has taught from the beginning. To explore without touching is a greater triumph than conquest. The ancient Egyptians did not build monuments for the present. They built monuments for forever. Every block placed in the Great Pyramid carried a purpose shaped by belief. Every shaft aligned with the stars spoke of a journey beyond sight. Every chamber echoed with the silent promise of eternal life. Nothing about this structure was temporary. Nothing was accidental. It is a message written in stone for the distant future. A message not for those who lived beside the Nile, but for those born long after the empire fell silent. Inside the pyramid, the architecture becomes a language. Angles rise as if to guide the spirit upward. Shafts point to northern stars that never set, stars that the Egyptians believed held the souls of kings. The north was the direction of eternal life, the realm of undying celestial lights. To reach those stars, the spirit needed a path. The pyramid provided that path through symbolic geometry. The builders wove religion into the very blueprint of the monument. Some rooms inside were places of transition, others were symbolic portals. Yet at least one chamber was shaped to hold a memory that would survive the absence of people, nations, and time itself. A chamber built to ensure that Khufu's name would never vanish from the world. That is, the essence of immortality. That is the purpose of a pyramid. Even the number of blocks reflects significance. More than 2 million stones, each one supporting the next, forming a mountain crafted by human hands. The exterior was once polished with white limestone that reflected the sun like a beacon. The pyramid was not a tomb in darkness. It was a monument of shining light. It was the horizon where earth met heaven. The core idea behind these hidden spaces seems to rise from a single belief. A king does not pass into the afterlife alone. His memory must remain with the living. His identity must echo in the world long after his body has turned to dust. The Egyptians feared 2 deaths. The first was the moment the heart stopped. The second was the moment the last person spoke their name. The pyramid ensured that second death would never come. By concealing chambers so deeply that they would remain unknown for millennia, the builders made a promise. They promised that one day humanity would discover what they had hidden. They believed that discovery would renew Khufu's legacy. It would allow the world to speak his name again, increasing his power in the eternal realm. The pyramid was not simply a burial structure, it was a time capsule of identity. Consider the large void above the grand gallery. Its shape mirrors the gallery, stretching upward like a ghostly twin. Why create a chamber that is not meant to be entered? Why preserve empty space so carefully? Because emptiness can hold meaning. The Egyptians saw voids not as nothing but as the womb of creation. In their earliest myths, the universe emerged from darkness, from a cosmic sea that held potential before form. Emptiness was divine. Emptiness was power waiting to awaken. Perhaps the void is a symbolic universe placed inside the pyramid, a reminder that the king becomes one with creation itself. Or perhaps it is the chamber where transformation occurred, a spiritual chrysalis that allowed Khufu to be reborn among the stars. The builders did not need it to be filled with treasure. They needed it to be filled with purpose. If the sealed corridor behind the north face leads to this void or a different secret chamber, its design speaks of ritual. A straight path aligned with the true entrance suggests that those who built it walked through it while the pyramid was still under construction. They might have carried sacred objects. They might have performed ceremonies that no living soul remembers. When the rituals were complete, the path would be sealed forever, leaving only the intention behind. The pyramid's deepest mysteries are not simply architectural, they are philosophical. They show how the ancient Egyptians saw life as a cycle that did not end at death. The king did not cease to exist when his body was sealed. He continued a journey through realms no mortal eyes could witness, and the pyramid was his vessel, guiding him upward with the precision of astronomy and mathematics. There is also symbolism in the isolation of the hidden chambers. These rooms do not face the bustling world outside. They do not connect to the grand corridors where workers walked. They lie in silence, untouched by human presence. They are protected from chaos by enormous quantities of stone layered with intention. The journey to them was designed not for the living, but for the soul. Only the king would pass through these sacred spaces. Only the gods would know the end of the path. When modern scientists use advanced technology to detect these voids, they are participating in the destiny the builders envisioned. They are the future humans discovering what was preserved until the right moment. The Egyptians believed that understanding would unfold over time, like petals of a lotus opening to sunlight. They designed the pyramid so that each generation could learn more than the one before. They wanted the monument to outlast knowledge so that knowledge would return to it. In this way, the sealed chambers are messages, not written in ink, but in architecture. Messages that say, remember the king who built this. Remember the greatness of the land where the Nile flows. Remember the people who mastered stone and star. The pyramid calls across ages. Understand why we built this. Understand who we were. This philosophy shaped not only the pyramid, but the entire culture. Temples, tombs, and statues all serve the same purpose: to preserve identity through eternity, to ensure that no spirit is forgotten. The pyramid is the ultimate expression of this purpose, a monument so powerful that it still dominates the horizon while kingdoms have risen and vanished around it. The sealed chambers represent the core of that purpose. By hiding knowledge, the builders guaranteed curiosity. By leaving secrets, they guaranteed remembrance. The pyramid does not simply protect the king, it protects the question: what lies within? And that question ensures that humanity will always return to this place, always wonder, always search. We live in an age where those questions may finally be answered, but the answers must honor the intention behind the secrecy. When we uncover these hidden rooms, we must see them not as treasure vaults or prizes for the living. We must see them as sacred spaces built to communicate meaning across time. We must treat them as the ancient architects hoped we would, with awe, with humility, with understanding. The chamber built to be remembered is more than just stone. It is a connection between two distant moments, one in the ancient world where the last stone was laid, and one in the modern world where technology finally catches up to ancient genius. At that moment, the builders and the explorers will meet through history. The story of the pyramid will become complete, and then the final question will remain: what happens when the door finally opens? There will come a moment when the hidden chamber is no longer a mystery. A robot the size of a small fruit or a slender tube of glass bearing a perfect lens will pass through the final barrier. It will glide into darkness that has not known a single flicker of light since the age when copper tools struck limestone and the scent of fresh stone filled the air. This will be the instant the ancient builders anticipated, a moment where the past meets the future, a moment where the sealed silence of the Great Pyramid will finally be broken by a beam of human curiosity. No one can predict exactly what will come into view first. Perhaps the camera will show smooth walls perfectly joined. Perhaps it will show relief carvings that no scholar has ever seen. Perhaps there will be objects resting silently on a floor untouched by dust or decay. Or perhaps the chamber will hold nothing but a perfect emptiness that carries meaning beyond form. The ancient Egyptians believed emptiness could contain power. They believed the breath of gods lived in the spaces that mortals could not enter. If the room is empty, that emptiness might speak louder than treasure. Yet the possibility remains that this chamber holds a secret treasure. The world wonders whether the body of Khufu lies beyond that sealed door. If so, his sarcophagus would be untouched by human hands. It would hold a king whose name shaped history long before the pyramids became wonder and myth. Objects of gold might shimmer in that first beam of modern light. Tools of ritual might lie in perfect order, waiting to be used by a spirit long since ascended. The pyramid could become the place where archaeology witnesses a scene frozen for more than 4,000 years. But the revelation of a chamber is not just excitement, it is transformation. The moment a sealed room is opened, the world changes. Oxygen enters, microorganisms awaken. Surfaces that have been preserved by ancient air are suddenly exposed to the modern environment. The greatest fear among archaeologists is that discovery could destroy what has been protected for so long. Materials as delicate as skin or fabric could crumble to dust once touched by time. A single mistake could erase the very history we seek to preserve. That is why every plan to access the hidden spaces begins with caution. Instruments will measure air composition first. Sensors will analyze pressure and humidity. Before any opening widens, the inside environment will be stabilized slowly to match the world outside. Nothing will rush, nothing will break. Every movement will honor the sacred purpose of the pyramid. When the camera finally explores the void above the grand gallery, it may find structural beams arranged in patterns that reflect sacred geometry. Even if the chamber is entirely functional, its significance will still be immense. It will teach us how the builders understood weight, stress, and the physics of megalithic stone. It will show engineering techniques far advanced for their time. It will reveal a chapter in the story of construction that has remained invisible until the 21st century. If the camera explores the sealed corridor behind the north face further, it may discover the true entrance of the pyramid concealed by a line of precision-fitted stones. That entrance might lead to the final unknown passage. The path could continue upward toward the large void, or deeper toward a separate chamber not yet detected. Each step will bring the world closer to understanding the mind of the architects who shaped this monument with mathematics, astronomy, and sacred belief. The first images shared with the world will be seen instantly by billions. The reaction will echo across continents and cultures. The Great Pyramid has always belonged to the human story, not just to Egypt. People from every land and every language will feel something awaken inside them. Wonder, connection, a sudden awareness that we are standing at the doorway of our oldest surviving mystery. For centuries, artists, scientists, and dreamers have asked what lies behind the walls. Soon that question will be answered, and the answer will belong to all of us. What comes after that revelation may be even more profound. The discovery of a hidden chamber will inspire a new age of exploration. Other pyramids in Egypt may be scanned and studied with the same technology. Muons will map the unseen spaces of temples buried beneath sand. Robots will creep into shafts that no living human could survive. History will expand not through force but through intelligence. The spirit of discovery will turn back toward the ancient world, not to conquer it, but to understand it. The hidden chamber may also change how humanity sees itself. The builders of the pyramid worked without electricity, without cranes, without computers, yet they achieved a perfection that modern engineers still struggle to replicate. They understood stars and angles with a depth that continues to impress physicists. They shaped stone to allow information to travel across 45 centuries. Their work was not simply construction, it was communication. When the door opens, we will not only see what was hidden, we will feel the presence of those who hid it, the workers who dragged stones under the blazing sun, the architects who measured every cubit with reverence, the priests who sang prayers as they sealed the final block. Their purpose will finally be fulfilled when we understand what they wanted us to see. Some scholars believe that the greatest discovery may not be physical at all. It may be an idea encoded into the architecture, a message meant for the future, something about the nature of life and death, something about the relationship between humanity and the cosmos. The pyramid is aligned with true north more precisely than many modern buildings. Its proportions reflect mathematical ratios that appear throughout nature. The builders saw the universe as one great design and placed their king at the center of that design. The hidden chambers might reveal how deeply they understood the principles of existence itself. There is also the possibility that the chamber will reveal nothing we expect. It may remain mysterious even after we see inside. The ancient Egyptians often surrounded their beliefs with layers of symbolism. The room might contain carvings or symbols that defy translation. It might show us that some parts of the past remain beyond human understanding. Mystery could deepen rather than dissolve. Whatever we find, one truth is certain. The moment the sealed chamber opens, the Great Pyramid will no longer be exactly the same. The ancient balance of secret and knowledge will shift. We will step from guessing to knowing. We will rewrite history books. We will rethink assumptions. We will celebrate the capacity of science to reach silently into the heart of a wonder that has captivated imagination since the dawn of recorded time. And when that moment arrives, perhaps the builders will finally rest. Their purpose achieved, their secret shared. Their king remembered not as a myth, but as a man whose legacy defied mortality. Standing before the Great Pyramid in that future moment, someone will speak a sentence that has waited thousands of years to be spoken. We build monuments for the living. The ancient Egyptians built theirs for the yet-to-be-born. The chamber will open, light will fall upon stone shaped by hands long gone, and humanity will understand that the ancient world built a message not for themselves but for us.